Today on Locked On Canadiens, Oliver Kapanen has officially made the Montreal Canadiens. Does he have what it takes to stay there?
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports the show and ensures you do not miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. Win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known Maybe It's Ian. I'm joined as I always am by Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, the preseason's over. Our long international nightmare has ended. We no longer have to watch meaningless exhibition games. The real stuff is on tap. How are we feeling coming out of the preseason and getting ready for the slate of 82?
Well, that last game wasn't as exciting as you would have wanted it to be, but that didn't diminish any of my excitement for this upcoming season. Like, the hype is still there. You know, we're gonna see some. I think we're gonna see something special this season. There will be ups and downs, but I'm glad that they closed out camp without any more shenanigans. That game was a bit dull. You know, they could have easily won it. A lot of you know what that felt like, that last game? It felt like when a team has already made the playoffs and they're kind of resting their stars.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
kind of how that felt. Like, that's the feeling. So, I think the Montreal Canadiens are just looking ahead to the regular season at this point. But yeah, overall, there were some things that I really loved during camp, and I know we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah, the Canadiens have made final cuts, so we'll start there. I think we'll figure what the lineup's going to look like. Maybe what are some downstream impacts, and talk about Oliver Kapanen, who has officially made the Montreal Canadiens and will play a pretty prominent role. I want to talk about Lane Hutson contract comparisons, as we just had a couple of them hit the free market. We'll see, where we think that lands Lane Hutson in those conversations. And then you really wanted to talk about this, and I completely agree with you. We have to talk about what happened between Florida and Tampa this preseason, how Montreal and Ottawa kind of figured it out and didn't go down the route that those two Floridian teams did, and whether or not the Atlantic Division is the roughest in the National Hockey League. And so let's start at training camp. It's officially over, which, thank goodness. They escaped with minimal injuries, a few tweaks here and there. Still waiting on hearing the full status of Zachary Bolduc. He was day-to-day with, I believe, a groin injury, a lower body injury, so we will wait on that. But Sammy Blake gets put on waivers. Beck, Florian Xhekaj, Engstrom, and Kapanen all get sent down, meaning Joe Veleno and Oliver Kapanen have made the Montreal Canadiens out of camp. Your thoughts, Laura Saba?
The first thing was, I think, Kapanen, starting from the first preseason game we saw him in, kind of gave himself that edge. We felt that. And it only grew. Like, he widened the gap between himself and the other forwards, really. So I'm not surprised. Obviously, this is going to be a huge test for him to see if he can be consistent, having made the team. I think the versatility is what did it with him. And I also think with Joe Veleno, that was it too. Like, he was very versatile. And I think it's really interesting with Joe Veleno because I did not give him enough credit for his defensive ability, but it was there. And so, when I first started questioning why would the Montreal Canadiens be interested in this guy, I think I was focused too much on who he's going to replace as opposed to what he brings to the team in a vacuum. And I think that's kind of how we need to kind of look at Kapanen too, because if we're always comparing these guys to whoever the Canadiens lost, whether it's with penalty killing ability or the face-offs or whatever, we're not like it's not fair to them, and we're never going to be satisfied. So I really liked what Joe Veleno did. I was at the game in person last night, and I took what was really funny is I went with our coworker from Locked On, Columbus Blue Jackets host Jay, and so he noticed when Joe Veleno did that block shot, when he did the pad stack,
Yeah, it was incredible.
That was so funny. Like, the guy sitting in front of us Googled him, and I was like, "That's exactly right. Like, that sounds so correct, right?"
That's awesome.
At a Habs game, Googling a guy who just blocked a shot. So, like, that's how Joe Veleno feels to me. But I think I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with how little we notice him, and I think that's going to be the point with him.
Yeah.
as opposed to Kapanen, where we are going to notice him. There's going to be some plays where we're going to be like, that was such a smart thing to do. I really like the way he plays. So I'm not surprised at all. And I know it was a tough decision to send Beck down and to send Florian Xhekaj down. I just feel like Florian Xhekaj really did everything that he possibly could to give himself a shot. Whereas Owen Beck, I felt was very inconsistent in the preseason.
Yeah, I think, I think, Kapanen made this team, and it's going to be up to him how long he stays in Montreal. He's been put in a really prominent role, so I think it's going to have to take a lot for the Canadiens to be like, "Yeah, this isn't working. Let's try something new." However, I think Florian Xhekaj could play in the NHL tomorrow. Like he seems like he's right there. I feel like you could put him on the fourth line and not really worry about his impact. Maybe he chips in a goal here or there. He provides some toughness to that bottom six. Like, I think he's right there. I think Beck is sort of there, but I mean, you're completely correct. His preseason was pretty inconsistent. He looked pretty good in the rookie camp, which he should have. It was his fourth one or whatever. Like, I think Beck kind of fell out of favor in the last couple of games just because, as Marty said, they have so many options. And I think Kapanen's going to be put in a position to succeed, and I think that's why they're sending Beck and Xhekaj down, is because putting them on the fourth line or putting them in the press box is not putting them in a position to succeed. They could go down to Laval and play on the top line or second line and be very successful and get a lot of really good reps. Engstrom also gets sent down. I loved his game on Saturday. He was like, when you think of Mike Matheson at his greatest, that's what Adam Engstrom felt like. I do not think it is long before we are talking about this guy playing NHL games. Like, I think before we get to the new year, he's in an NHL, at least in a call-up situation. Injuries happen, right? Like, he'll probably pop into a lineup here or there. Was there anybody else that jumped off the ice, for you in that game?
Not in that particular game, to be honest. Kirby Dach, I think he wasn't as phenomenal as he was in the previous one we saw him in. But I did think that he looks to be somebody who has been doing some work mentally over the course of the offseason, not just rehabbing his injury, but also rehabbing his mind. He's playing confidently and he's playing with some fire, which he's not the kind of guy like that's excitable. You're not going to, he's not going to give you a Florian Xhekaj or Arbor Xhekaj like presence in any respect, but he seems to be playing with fire. And I love that. I absolutely love that. I also really appreciated that they put Kirby Dach and Patrik Laine out a lot, and they had them play a maximum amount of preseason games. We saw them a lot just because I think like the Canadiens are kind of like signaling to them, like you better be ready, right? Like this is the expectation for you. Patrik Laine is still allergic to a back check, but I cannot be upset with the number of penalties he draws. So
yeah, I think that was the one of the things about Laine's game of this entire preseason was he just uses his massive frame to shield the puck and frustrate, forecheckers or defenders into taking a penalty that they shouldn't take. I also thought he was instrumental in a lot of plays staying in the offensive zone. Like, he was making plays and good reads where he was picking off attempts to leave the zone. There was one play, I think it ended up drawing a Canadiens power play, or maybe they scored, they got a good chance off of it, where Laine had two guys on him. And he's just kind of shielding the puck, and he tries to make a move, and he doesn't pull the move off, but he drew two guys to him, so the free puck was available for a Canadian to jump on. So I think, like, if Laine is doing those things, that line will be successful. I do think they're just going to go right back to putting Dach and Laine back on the same line, to which I'm like, I don't, there's no proof of concept yet that it works. And I'm dying for it because I thought Dach looked like a guy who was on the cusp of something special. He's not there yet, but he's on the cusp of being that guy we all thought he would be when the Canadiens traded for him at the draft. So if they can get those two working together in a way that's meaningfully productive offensively and not a drag defensively, I'm all for it. But I don't have evidence yet that I think it could work. Am I too pessimistic about that pairing? I love Patty. I love Dach. I just don't think the pair works.
I think the problem is that last time they were together for a long period of time, where we could get, like, I'm going to say, a sample size with accurate information, they were both like not even 100%, they were not close to 100%. They were even close to 50%. They were not playing at their best ability. They were in their own heads. Patrick Laine was physically broken. Kirby Dach was mentally broken. It was not working out. So like I'm not ready to give up on that. I completely understand what you're saying. I just think they need a chance that both of them have come back now, fully ready and fully like playing in a totally different league than they were before. So I want to give them I want to give them some maybe 10 games to kind of give up on this forever.
Yeah, we'll have to see it. This is the first time they'll be each fully healthy. So I think if it doesn't work now, it never will. Let's give it some runway. I completely agree with you there. All right. We'll leave the preseason there. It's over. We don't need to talk about it anymore. We'll talk about it a little bit in the third segment because it's really funny what happened at the same time the Canadiens were playing the Senators. But when we come back, two defensemen recently signed contracts that could fare as pretty good comps for what Hutson is looking for in his next deal. Who's going to balk first? Who's going to be the one that bites? We'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting, so you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and feel in control of your finances without ever touching a spreadsheet. What surprised me most about using Monarch Money was seeing how much money I was leaving on the table from a savings perspective, from an investment perspective. They helped me notice inefficient investment allocations. I discovered forgotten 401ks from previous jobs. Monarch Money pulled all that together in one spot, so now I'm not forgetting any of it. Don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, we're back. There are two young defensemen, who have recently signed contracts in the National Hockey League that will dictate how the Canadiens' negotiations go with one Lane Hutson. First, Jackson Lacombe signs his contract, an 8-year deal worth $9 million each year. And Luke Hughes, who signs a $9 million deal, $9 million a year for 7 years. So a year shorter for Luke Hughes, but $9 million flat for both of those. Laura, how far away do you think the Canadiens and Hutson are from that total? That $9 million for both of those guys gives them a really decent place to start. Who do you think has the upper hand, and how far away are they?
I think this has put more leverage in the Montreal Canadiens' pocket. I think initially, before these contracts were signed, we were talking about, oh no, is he going to ask for $11 million? Is he going to ask for $12 million? And we kept saying that if we get Lane Hutson for under $10 million, it's a steal, right? Now here you have two comparables, and you have to, like, I know that Lane Hutson had the best rookie season for a defenseman ever, blah, blah. I understand that. But these two guys are a bit more complete on the defensive side. So you do have to take that into consideration, right? Like, there are flaws in Lane Hutson's game. He is not perfect. He is phenomenal. I love him. I know he's going to be a massive part of the Canadiens being good this year. In fact, I'm planning an episode to get us all hyped up for our Wednesday episode. So Lane Hutson is the future, but he's not well-rounded enough defensively to ask for much more than those guys. Now, I would still, if I'm Lane Hutson, I would still ask for that $11 million, and maybe they come in the middle.
Yeah, I don't think that Hutson has too much more leverage here, other than to play out this next season, bet on himself, and bank in now. If Hutson wants to sign this deal now, the number's around 5. Give him 9.48, so he has his jersey number in there, because players love that. I think that's fine. I think we need to understand here that, yes, you're correct, that Hutson is a little more offensively minded than those guys are, but those guys have a more well-rounded, complete defensive game. I do think ultimately, though, points are going to sell. Points are going to be very important. You know how I know the Canadiens value that? They just gave Noah Dobson 9.5. Like, yes, Noah Dobson's a little bit more complete defensively, but like 70 points as a defenseman. That's what you're paying that 9.5 for. So I have a hard time believing that the defensive, I won't even say miscue, the defensive acumen of Lane Hutson here is it comes at a detriment to his game. I really think that his defensive game is fine.
Yes.
Especially given his size, he's very crafty. Again, he's always been small. He knows how to play small. So it's not like someone shrunk him and it's like, well, now he's not going to be any good. Like he's always been this small. So I think a lot of that is overblown.
I do think well this is the thing though, is that I just felt that those two guys were more defensively gifted, right? They were more they were more well-rounded defensively. Like the word you used was great. I just think that at the end of the day, like this is also something that he can work on. Like the defensive game is something that he can work on. But at some point, I mean, I was watching that game last night and, Samuel Montembeault was probably going to stab his coworkers that night, right?
Yeah.
He's too good-natured to do that. He's such a good guy. But if I were in those shoes, the stabbing would have happened, right? So that's all I'm saying. So I feel that, that's something that the Montreal Canadiens really do need to balance out. And I would not be surprised if they try to make it equal to Noah Dobson's contract, right? Like maybe they say, like, you guys have you this massive offensive game. Like this is how important you are to our future. And we're always going to look at you as our top two options, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what they're there for. They're there to complement each other. They're there so the Canadiens have defensive depth that is better than the opponents that they're going to be facing. So personally, I wouldn't be surprised if it comes in that way. But again, like I do think, like as you said, points do matter. I just feel like if you're the Montreal Canadiens and you want to make an argument that those guys got $9 million and you say, well, I have a lot of points. Well, you know what? But those people also do other things on the ice that not that you can't do, but we're not relying on you to do that, right? Like that's a huge difference. Like you're not our go-to guy for that. You're a go-to guy for this other thing.
Yeah, and I think, giving him 9.5 and saying, you and Dobson are going to make the same. Those are your top two defensemen. Congrats. You've capped your defenseman now at 9.5. At least what that percentage means, right? Like as the cap goes up, you can go, well, Hudson's only making this percentage of the cap. You're not making more than him, David Reinbacher. Something along those lines. Although I don't think that they're going to have a lot more players coming through the pipeline that are going to command that amount. So it's not, I don't know that that's a massive point of emphasis, but it certainly matters that they're, giving him that 9.5, tying him with Dobson. I think it's what's going to matter. I know, there's a lot of talk around the league. I think Arpon Basu and Marc-Antoine Gaudin said it on their podcast that there's this kind of idea within the Canadiens that they want to keep their salaries down, that the players are all trying to take less in order to win, which is great. But you can't enforce that. Like if a player is going to want more, you're either going to pay him the more or you're not going to have that player.
Yeah.
It also, you need to win if you do that. Like if you don't win, then you have a bunch of guys taking less to do nothing and then they all leave, right? Yeah. The guys took less to stay in Florida because they get to live in Florida and they're winners. They win all the time. Yeah. So like that's the game you play when you're asking guys to take less to win. You got to win.
Yeah. But I also don't think the Canadiens are sitting there saying like, you need to take $4 million less, right? The Canadiens are saying, can you come in at one less? Can you come in at a half less, right? Like, can instead of us giving you 10 million, can we give you 948 or something like that?
Yeah. Just try to get a deal on every player. Not don't fleece them, but like, make it easy for us to make this deal with you.
Exactly that. Because I think like you can't lowball them entirely, but you can say like, can we sign you to a team-friendly deal? And there's also things like, like there's ways to work around the cap. There's ways to work around taxes too, like your bonus structures, which I know bite you in the butt the following season with LTIR and stuff, all of that kind of stuff. But still, I still think like there's a way to structure a contract. There's a way to build in some incentives. There's a way to do things where you get around this tax problem. You get around the cap. and it's still legal. You find the loopholes. Like, this is why you hire lawyers.
Yeah.
This is why this is why you employ lawyers and capologists, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's going to be fine. I don't think we should be too worried about it. I like that these numbers came in as low as they did, because if they were talking like $11 million each, then I would have had questions and some concerns.
One word answer here, Laura. Is Lane Hutson extended before the season ends?
Yes.
I say no. I don't think it gets done. All right. We'll leave that there. When we come back, we're talking about the Atlantic Division, mostly the two Florida men in our division who beat the crap out of each other on Saturday. Again, we'll talk about that and their placement within the Atlantic Division coming up next on Locked On Canadiens.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. This show is also sponsored by Farm to Fork. If you're a fan of premium locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door, I've got some exciting news. Farm to Fork makes it easy to get high-quality steaks, air-chilled chicken, wild-caught seafood, and more, all with no antibiotics, hormones, or GMOs. Plus, everything comes flash frozen and individually packaged for your convenience. All Farm to Fork meats are raised on Canadian farms, so when you order, you're supporting local producers. Time to buy Canadian. Farm to Fork's meats are top-notch. I've had some amazing steaks that were tender, juicy, and perfectly cooked. Their chicken is air-chilled, so it's fresher and more flavorful than what you'd get in the store. And the wild-caught seafood is a game changer. That's actually my favorite. It's fresh, it's clean, it's full of flavor. They're delivering all across Ontario and Western Quebec. And the best part, delivery is free with a minimum order of $199. You don't even have to leave the house to get this kind of quality. I've got a special code just for you. Use LOCKEDON40 to get $40 off your first order at Farm to Fork. Visit farm2forkdelivery.ca to start stocking up on the best meats around. Again, that's LOCKEDON40 for $40 off your first order at farm2forkdelivery.ca. Farm to Fork. Delicious, locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door.
All right. We are back, and it's time to talk about two teams that are not the Montreal Canadiens, but two teams the Canadiens will play a lot in the future, considering they are division rivals, and that's Tampa and Florida. They had a rough game against one another on Thursday or Tuesday at the same time that Montreal and Ottawa were beating the crap out of each other. And then Saturday, while Montreal and Ottawa both decided that cooler heads were going to prevail, we're going to get to the regular season in one piece, Tampa and Florida had other ideas. 222 combined penalty minutes, 12 misconducts, or game misconducts that tossed players out of the game. And one of the funniest sequences I think I've ever seen regarding a player, an ineligible player assisting on a goal and them not realizing it for like 6 minutes after the fact. Laura, what happened on Saturday between these two teams?
I think I honestly I was following that game while I was at the Montreal Canadiens game, and I was starting to feel like the Canadiens game was a bit boring, but I was glad that it was. You know, we were kind of at the beginning anxious about injuries, and then I was kind of like holding, you know, the bars like in the upper level. I was holding that, just being like, don't start anything, don't fight, don't get too excited. And at the same time, you were texting the group chat. There were a lot of group chats going. And it seems like Florida and Tampa were not able to allow cooler heads to prevail, but it also just seems so short-sighted to me. Like, why are you behaving that way in a game that doesn't mean anything? Part of it makes me feel like sometimes the fact that the game doesn't mean anything emboldened them a little bit to behave in that way. Because it's like, who cares if I get ejected, because I don't need to win this game, right? It was also, we do have to mention the Florida ran up the score.
Yeah, they did. The score ended up in that one 7-0. It was brutal. And that's with Mikkola getting ejected and them taking a goal off the board. Like they retroactively took a goal away because they realized, oh yeah, that guy's not supposed to be playing.
So he got ejected. He didn't leave the game. Nobody noticed. He assisted on a goal. Nobody noticed, and then they had to stop the game after like a few minutes, being like, "Oh, that guy wasn't supposed to be on the ice, so we got to take the goal away. We can't reset the clock now."
Yeah, I find like that play reminded me. Remember last year there was that shootout towards the end of the year between Montreal and Chicago where
They
Frank
didn't reset the clock
scored in the shootout, but they all missed it, and then they let Patrick Laine shoot, and he didn't score, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, Nazar scored a minute ago. Don't worry about it though." Like, no, that Laine shot. Maybe they don't even pick Laine if that goal doesn't happen. Like maybe they go with a different player if they know, okay, we're down. We might want to put our anchor in who was going to go last. We might want that to happen. Like I that was so frustrating and so bush league. Did they get the answer correct? Yeah, in a way, but like they did it the wrong way, which is frustrating. I think you could say the same about this Florida game. Now, there were only fines doled out so far. There are 2 Tampa Bay Lightning players who are headed for supplemental discipline. Both of them have hearings pending. Like there's a lot going around about how the league like loves the Florida Panthers. I get all that. Colin Campbell's role in all of that because Gregory Campbell plays a role within the Florida Panthers, and Colin Campbell, there are emails on record that essentially establish him as helping cheat so that his son's team can win, the 2011 Bruins being that team. I just find that angle of it to be exactly where these sort of hockey hysteria stories end out. Like these guys beat the crap out of each other for 120 minutes this week, and we end with a shadow figure within the NHL structure keeping the Florida Panthers at the top. I don't know necessarily that I agree with any of that. I will say though that this is evidence to support what we've said on this show, which is that the preseason is stupid. You said that the fact that the games are meaningless emboldens these players. I think it lowers their tolerance for nonsense and they start freaking out. Like, some guy you might get cross-checked in a regular season game into the boards and, you get up, you tussle a little bit, you get off the ice. Because it's a preseason game and it doesn't mean anything, why are you trying to hit me in a game that doesn't mean anything, loser? Like, what are you doing? That's how I think it comes across. This is why after the first Ottawa game, and I haven't been on the show since then, after the first Ottawa game, my opinion of this is that the NHL preseason should be for NHL players. Nobody else should be in these games. Like there should not be a world where, who is Hodgson for Ottawa is on the ice with Ivan Dimidov. There's no reason for it. Now, that doesn't solve whatever happened in Florida because all of those guys are NHL players being complete dorks for no reason. But like next year, it's going to be shortened. It's going to be 4 games. Make it only NHL players and make it 2 games. You get 2 games. You get each of your goalies gets to start a game, and you can work some extras in and out of the lineup. We need to be done with this. Clearly, the adults are not in the room in the preseason. It's hockey. They're barely ever in the room anyway, but they're certainly not in the preseason.
Yes. I just remembered I promised I'd talk about Michael Hage on the Monday episode. We're going to talk about Michael Hage on the Tuesday episode, guys. Yeah. The promise I made was before the Florida Panthers did this, or Tampa and Florida did this, and the NHL let it happen. So I think like the thing is like if you are a player that is, let's say, Oliver Kapanen or Owen Beck or whatever, like those are the guys you play. You play mostly NHL players and you give one of those guys a chance. But if it's a guy who's going to cause a fight or start a fight or punch some faces in order to get noticed, he's going to get sent down to the AHL anyway. Like those guys don't stay on NHL lineups, even if they stay for a game, even if they get called up after a team gets beat up on by whatever other team, right? Like, I just think about like the players, like the teams calling up people because like they're going to face Xhekaj. And then that same guy is going to go down in the NHL.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, don't play those guys. Like those guys should get their special preseason.
Who's never played an NHL game and is not currently under a contract professionally to play hockey?
Who?
Cedric Poirier. He's never played a National Hockey League game, except when he was on the ice for that game against Patrick Laine and took him out. Again, was it intentional? No, but he shouldn't be on the ice with these guys. He clearly can't handle it. Like that's that the NHL preseason should be for NHL players. We need to stop putting ECHL guys in these lineups. It's a waste of everyone's time. And I'm tired of pretending like, well, we have to watch these games to make sure we know what's going. No, we don't. We clearly don't. Like, we pick out certain storylines from each one of them. The result doesn't matter. And generally speaking, none of these guys are going to play National Hockey League games. Hutson is 29 years old and has 9 NHL games. You shouldn't be in a position to board Alex Newhook in a game that doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I will not be convinced on this that these games are important. I just won't. All right, let's hit our trivia and head out of here. Today's trivia question actually comes from a current trivia or a common trivia answerer for us, Super Rain, who asks, when Montreal legend Saku Koivu started in the Finnish national team, he played on the line with Jiri Lehtinen and Ville Peltonen. What was the nickname of that line? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Let us know the answer, and we'll shout you out on the next episode of the show. Quick programming note. This is my last episode for a little while. I'll be out this week. I have a big project at work that I have to be away.
Oh, they
so
know.
You will be in Laura's capable hands. I just wanted to say, enjoy the season, have fun. Try to be nice to other fans, please. Let's not make a scene. And remember, it's 82 games. We have a long way to go. Let's try not to freak out at week 1.
Yes.
All right. We'll leave that there. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us on the show and ensures you do not miss an episode. You can find the show Locked On Canadiens in most places we are posting things. Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok primarily. You can email the show lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. We do a mailbag every week. Help Laura out this week. I probably won't be around to answer it, so send in questions to Laura. We'll have some things to talk about. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Actor Stick. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the week, you guys. Enjoy the start to the season. We'll be back soon.